Guys, hi to everyone. So let's start. So I have here 47 students. So let's share my screen now. So can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have here Postman. So let's copy. Let's copy our example here. Okay. And I want to open in PyCharm project. So open project. Examples of development in this demo project. Okay, these configurations and those files was created from the previous lectures, and I think you already see and discussed with each other these files and what for that files was created. So here we have the only one data model. In our case, it's a Python class, and registering to the admin side. And what else? So I have here two APIs. For first one for listing the products, second one for showing the item of the product. So we have such like a simple functions to retrieve all data from the database and converting them to the JSON format and responding them to the client side. The same thing for the details page, where we have selected product ID, and depending on this ID, we want to extract the product from the database. And if we found any, in that case, we have to respond the JSON format of that object. If we have some problems, I mean, product item cannot be found in the database. In that case, we want to message some response to the client side to show somehow the informally data. Okay. Today we have to continue learning the creation of the APIs. So the creation of the APIs and how can we work with the different, so the number of models, how can we connect them with each other, and but except this, we have to see the so let's see the slides. So the building the REST APIs with the Django. So we started from the only two APIs, which is the both of them are the GET requests. HTTP method, in our case, they are the GET. So let's open our Postman again. So about the Postman, you already know. I uploaded the our collection, and so you have to work with the Postman to your lab works, so on. So let's open our workspace, which is a KBTU in our case. And which one was, oh, okay, this one. So this one, so let's copy it over here. And we have the 11th week. 11th week. And we have here environment selected. And if you run your Python code, Python 3 managed by run server. So, and after that, you can test your APIs to be the list of products and show one product. You have the same thing, but in different ways, I think. So I have here main one, which is which is a fake data, which was created in the script, and the core one, which will retrieve the data from the database. Okay, so we have here only two types of. So let's close the main one. Two types of the APIs, which both of them are GET requests. So we have to think about the other type of requests, and let's try to implement them. So, okay. So any questions from the previous lecture, and any misunderstanding points regarding to the getting the request, getting the data from the database, and so on? Guys?
Yeah, actually, I got one question.
Yeah.
On my first project, I couldn't connect to my database. So what should I do to connect for the database?
So the database connection. Okay, thanks. Database connection is already configured with our SQLite. So if you want to change the type of the database, for instance, it might be the PostgreSQL, you have to set the needed attributes. So it should be the engine, it should be the name of the database, and extra two fields, which are as minimum two fields, which are the user who can work with that database. So username and user password. So these two fields required to work with the Postgre database. If you are working locally, if your Postgre application, so the Postgre program installed in the local computer. If you have in the remote one, you have to also set extra field, which is called the host, which is the host, and if you have the different port, except the default one, you have to also set your changed port. So for the empty data, for the empty Django project, it's already installed and configured the SQLite database. You don't need to manually do some configurations for working with the database. Okay, I see your table and your question.
Yes, and there is no tables in the main database, only the default tables. And
Okay,
I couldn't connect to the SQLite database.
So I see your database. So you can see I have the auth and also the default application tables. So to apply your changes in your application, for instance, in your core application, you have the model called product. And after that, we said about the migrations. So we have here folder migrations, and we have different migrations here, which describes our changes, our so the managing our Python classes. After changing the Python class, these classes, you have to run two commands which we discussed before, which is a make migration, and second one is migrate to apply that changes in the database. Have you did these two commands yet?
Yes, I'm sorry, no disrespect, but I've done all these things, and the whole problem is that my database are not being able to being showed. I don't know how to say it. There is only default ones. I made all the migration models. I made make migration. I made migrate, and there is still no database.
Okay, the database. So the default. So database is already created. Have you tried to click to the reload icon in the top bar?
Yes, I tried. I tried to click DB
Извиняюсь,
SQLite
можно
3.
перебью? У меня была похожая проблема. Я поменял версию Django, и это все починило. Там
Ну,
я
так
issue
мне версия
прочитал на
Django
GitHub.
2.1 нравится. Ну, как бы.
Я поставил 2.1.5.
Okay, ладно.
И заработался.
Okay, let's discuss the version of the database and version of the Django a little bit later after the lecture time. Okay, I do.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? So this should be no problem, because the one thing you have to do is just configure correctly. Create your Django project correctly and do these two commands, which are the make migration and migration after changing the models, and that's it. And it should just show the difference. So it should apply the difference of your class and the database, which is over here. Okay, so okay, let's close this one. So we can, I think we can delete this one also. So let's try to understand the relations between the two different type of, so the different models, in our case, different classes in one application. So in your lab work, you have to work with the categories and products which are somehow connected with each other. So let it be, the first one is, so we have the different type of connections. So in our case, in other words, you can say the relations between the data, between the models. The first one is when we have only one-to-one relation. One-to-one relation means, so your model can have only one object of the second model. The example is, for instance, if we have the user table, and for each user we have only one profile. For each user, we have only one profile. So we have two tables. The first one is user, second one is profile. When we are creating a new user and we have the profile, the separate table, so separate, in our case, separate Python class, and the connection between these two tables, so two models, have to be the one-to-one. Why? Because user cannot have the different, so the number of profiles. So this is just one example for one-to-one relation, which is the first type of the relations between the database, between the models. So the second one will have one-to-many, so which is a most commonly used relation. So examples are very so many examples we can say about this relation. Because, for instance, let it be for each, so let it be the category and product, which is in our example. So the category, each category will have number of products. So one category will have the number of products. Product class. We have two classes, category class and product class, and they have to be somehow connected with this relationship, which means the product should be inside of the some category. So after that, we can select, for instance, the clothes, clothes, which is a category, and after selecting the clothes, we can show all the products inside of this category, and this is called the one-to-many relationship. And the third one is many-to-many connection. Many-to-many connection. Many-to-many connection, but by its name, it can be clear that two models should be somehow connected. So the first model will have the number of elements of the second one, and second, in the same case, second one can have the number of elements of the first one. So the example is, so we have different examples. One of them is products and text. For instance, for each product in the online stores, in any online store, you can see the some of the text. You know about the text, what is text? So the inside of the product, we might have different type of text. For instance, clothes, so the shows and so on, and in one product. In the same case, one tag, for instance, shows or jackets, which is one tag, can be inside of the different number of products, which means they are connected with each other using the many-to-many relationship. So we have such like a three type of the relations inside of the Django, and in some cases, so the first one, second one is clear. In some cases, the third one, which is already implemented in the Django, it's recommended to use a separate table when we have the many-to-many relationship. For instance, let it be the class tag. Let it be like name equals to models char field, the maximum. So let it be like this. And so product might have the field like text, models, and many-to-many relationship, many-to-many field. Many-to-many fields can be used to connect these two tables with each other. For instance, we have inside of the products, we have the text field, which is connected to using the many-to-many relationship with the text. But it's recommended if you have if your database is very big and it's expected to be very big. In that case, it's recommended to use such like a extra table, which is product tag. Product tag, let it be the models model. And in this tag, in this table, you just connect these two classes. So let it be the bottom side. So the first one is tag, which is model, foreign key, and tag table, and product, foreign key with the product. So what you are doing inside of this many-to-many field, which is already implemented in the Django, it should just implicitly do such like a table. So it will just try to implement implicitly this type of the table, which will connect these two classes, and will create implicitly so this inner we can say the inner class which connect such like tables. So it means in one table we have two columns. First one is ID of the text. Second one is ID of the products. So for one tag we might have different products. In the same case, for one product we might have the different text. And such like a table will just solve the many-to-many relation by ourselves. So using the foreign key, which is a foreign key, which is a one-to-many relationship, which means in this table, tag might be duplicated and products also might be duplicated. If the products are duplicated, it means tag will have the different. So the tag will have the different products. So in the same case, product might have the different tags. So let's copy this one and put it over here. And we have the many-to-many relationship. So let's create our category model. Models model, let it be the name, char fields, and to this on let's implement such like a method which we know about it. So the ID is self ID, and the name is also self name. Okay, we have the category table. So we created category table which will have the two columns. The first one is ID, second one is name. And we want to implement such like a relationship, which means in one category we might have the different number of products. For that, you have to add inside of the product. So inside of the product, the field called category, which means we are trying to say to the Django project that when we want to add a new product, we have to add it inside of some category, which means category equals to models, and you already see it, foreign key. We don't have the such like a name, which is a one-to-many. Instead of the one-to-many, we have the foreign key, which is already implemented also inside of the Django. Foreign key, which means with the category table. So we have primary key and we have foreign key. About the difference about these two keys, you already know. The primary key is a local ID, and foreign key, which is an ID of the different or the second table. So we are saying for product, we want to add category field, category column, models, foreign key, and the connected table, which is a category inside of this file. And we have number of required options, so required attributes that we have to say, that we have to set in the when we are trying to connect these two tables. The first one is what should be when we are deleting of the category. So it depends, it goes to the category side. So the configuration for it's just the credentials. So you know already from the PostgreSQL that if we have some connection between these two tables, and what should be when we are just deleting one of these items. For instance, what should be if I'm deleting the category? What should be with the products if I'm deleting the some category? And the same case you can say it about the opposite side. So this is just credentials, which means when we are deleting the category, we might have different options. Models we have, first one is cascade. About it, you already know, which means if I'm deleting the category, I want to delete also all products inside it, which means all products which will have which had the ID of the deleted category, they are also should be deleted, which is a cascade one. And second one is set null. And we are saying if I'm deleting some category, in that case, all products which was inside of the products table, they should be left, but the category column should be set to the null. If you are putting such like a table, such like a configuration, such like a credentials, in that case, you have to allow this column nullable. So by default, they are not nullable. Null equals to true, because without it, it will not work. If you are setting such like a credentials, you have to say that the null can be for this column. Okay, and we have other. So this default value are set. So default value, which means if you have the default credentials for some column, in that case, you can say that the default category, for instance, which is not deleted from the database. The category ID equals to 1. Category ID equals to 1. Let it be the default one. And first category cannot be deleted by admin side. So in that case, you can say that they've set default. And all category, so the all products which had the ID of the deleted category, they will just become as a default one. And in most cases, it's used the cascade credentials, cascade constraints, because to exit as to expect some errors. In that case, that's why this configuration can be also used for deleting all the products when we are deleting the category also. Okay. After that, we have other different options, which we'll talk a little bit later. So for now, we added new category, we added the new column to the product. So that's why we want to run our migrations. Manage by make migrations. So, and it says you are trying to add non-nullable field category. As you can see here, we have the, so let's open our admin side. I think we have, okay, we have, so the product category ID not implemented yet, that's why it cannot be opened. So, and it says, so you added the non-nullable field, which is the category 1, to the product table, but we have already existing products inside of this products database, so product table. And what should be for those files? Let it be opened here, the core one. So we have such like items inside of the database. And from the command line, it asks what should be with this table, with these products. And you have two options here. The first one is providing the default one. Second one is just exiting from this command line and adding the configuration inside of inside of your model. And you can do the both of them. So I mean any of them. So if you want, you can try to set the first one, or you can just put it like nullable, and that's it. It means for all existing models, the column category should be null. For new added items, the category can be set by the admin side or by the API. Okay, let's run it again. And in that case, you can see that without any errors, it created a new migration, which is over here, which is the first one. And it says the creation of the model, which is 2 columns, and adding the fields to the product model, which is a category. The default one is null, and such like configurations and the name of the model. And the second command is managed by migrate, and it applied. And if you open this product, so the product table, so we have already existing products, and if you want to add new one, product 7, let it be price, and we have here list of products, but we don't have any products inside of our admin side. That's why it's empty. So to add our category to the admin side, you know about it. So let's open the admin by file, import the category here, and do the same thing for the category. And let's save it. I think it's already reloaded and reload. So as you can see here, we have the the mistakes, so the spelling mistake from the table, from the Django side, and the name of the model. In our case, it's a category. And in the database, it will just try to add the plural form of our model, and that's why it's just adding the S at the end of the database table. For fix these problems, when we have the product, which is already correct because we have the T at the end, but in the category we have the misunderstanding, and which is a mistake here. For that, you can use the inner class, which is a configuration class for any model, which is called the class meta. Inside of the meta class, so the classes which are called like a meta classes, they just will describe your model. So the configurations are the metadata of your model. So in the metadata of your model, you might have the different type of configurations. The several of them, which is a verbose name, let it be the category, and verbose name plural, categories. And such like a configurations will be applied to our category model. Inside of the meta class, you might have the different type of, so the DB table, for instance, we have such like a option, DB table, if you are adding like a ASD, and depending on the DB table, when we are running a migration, it will create a table called ASD for category. So it's just the name of the table. So you can say my category table. And inside of the database, instead of the core category, it will create a table called my category table. So such like configurations can be done inside of the meta class, which is like a configuration or the explaining of the current model. And inside it, we have such like a 2 options which are described: one object, name of the model, and plural form of the name of the model. So after adding the verbose names, you have to also run the migrations because they are also stored in the database, migration and migrates. And after that, if you reload the admin side, as you can see, it will just use your plural form of the category. And if you open one of them, and here, for instance, add category in this button, it will use just a verbose name, which is a single one. So let's add category 1, save and add another category 2. Let it be, okay, we have such like a 2 categories. And when we are adding the new product, So the 7, that would be the 7,000 something. And here we have the category which can be selected over here like this. And you can edit them, you can add new one if you want, and so on. This is just the abilities and the functionality of the admin side. And after that, you can save it. And the seventh one, in our case, it's a project. So the product object, which is the ID equals to 6. That would be the 6 to do the correct ID. Okay, such like a relation can be done. As you can see here, we can do the same thing for meta class for the products also. So the verbose name, it's a product. The verbose plural will be the products. And make migration again and migrate again. Okay. Okay, any questions? How can we connect these two items and how can we work? So let's open our, to more deep understanding, let's open our manage by file and shell command. So about this, I think I'm showing on the first time. So in the terminal side, using the manage by file, you have the one more command, which is called shell. If you run it, it will just open the Python interpreter, but in this case, it will just work with your Django project. If you are opening the terminal like Python 3, it will just open the Python interpreter, which will work in the Python examples. But if you are working with the manage by shell, it will also open the Python. But in this case, in your interpreter, you will have the the ability to connect with the Django project, which means from, in our case, let it be the core models. So the models. So I'm working with it like this: core models, and inside it, I want to import the model called category, and the same thing for the product. So these two models I imported in the terminal, and this is very useful when we are just want to check some items and how can we see the relations and how they was stored in the database and so on. For instance, product. So the product objects all, and as you can see, product 1 and 2 and so on. So this is not more inform will give us more information about the product. The same thing for the categories also. For categories, it will just by default will show such like output. So category object, and in the parentheses it will show the ID of the category. But we can also change this output, and I will show it a bit later. So let's see the category objects all, and we'll have here two objects. So let's take the category 1. So, okay. Category objects. So objects, and first one, we have such like a function called first and last. First will return the first object. Last is it's last, which is just like a all function, and 0, which is the first one. And if you are working like this using the ID, so using the index of the array, in that case, if you have the empty array, you will have the error. But if you are using the first function, if you have the empty array here, it will just return the none, which is the correct one. Okay, I'm extracting the first category, category 1, which is over here, and let's see our product, which is category 1, our 6 products inside of the category 1. So let's take the product, which is a product objects, So the get ID equals to, I want to extract the product with ID 6, which is 6 over here. And here I have the product number 6. And using the products, you can get the access to the category ID. Oh, category ID, because inside of the products, if you open the database, let it open the database, even I am putting the name of the category, name of the column like category, and I am setting the foreign key to the category table. But in the database, it will automatically add the category ID, column category ID. Why? Because we are adding the foreign key, which should be stored as a foreign key, and it will understand that category should be not category; it's just a category ID, and that's why inside of the table we have the category ID object. So category ID, not object; it's just an integer one. If you just will try to get the category object, you can also do it. For instance, p.category will return the category object. How? Using this ID. Using this ID, it will send the second request to the database to extract the product. So no, sorry, extract the category using the stored ID. For instance, category, and inside it you can select the name. As you can see here, the name of the category, the ID of the category, and for instance, and to call, for instance, even to JSON function to the category. This function was called using the category object inside of the product. Like this, you can have such like a relation, and if you are working, if you are trying to do something inside of the category, you can do it like this. And if you want, you can also just you can also just get the ID of the category like this, which is also number. So okay, from the product side, I think this is clear. So let's see from the category side. We have category 1. Inside of the category 1, we said that we know that inside of the one category, we might have the different number of products. So category 1, to get all the products inside of this category, your Django application will, so when you are connecting them using the foreign key, the Django application will apply the name of the relation between the one to many. It will just product underscore and set. Why product underscore set? Because category located inside of the product table, it's the first case, and it will be connected with the category using the foreign key, which means inside of the one category we will have the number of products, and by default name of that relation will be the product. It's the name of the table, and underscore set, it's always. If you have product name, it's the class name will be like ASD. In that case, you will have the relation like ASD set. Set is just a suffix. So let's go back here. So the product, let's see, product set, and for extracting all the products inside from the database, which are located inside of this category, this product set is the name of the attribute, and using the all function, as we did for getting all the products or all the categories, you can do such like an example. And after that, it will just return all the products inside of this category. Category, product set, all. So let's do it for fifth product again. So let's select the category 1. And product 5 also will be inside of the first category. So the description. And after that, if you do the same thing again, you will have inside of the first category, you will have 2 products, as you can see here. Like this, you can do it. You can do such like a connection from both sides. From the product side, you might have the access to the category. from the category side, you might have the access to the products inside of this category. So this name, which is a product set, can be also configured. For that, you have to set here one more option, which called related name. Name means if you are putting like ASD instead of the product set, you can use the ASD. But it's recommended to use more readable and more understandable name. For instance, I have to set inside of the related name. I have to set inside of the related name those names that should be somehow understandable. I mean, if I have only one object of the category, how I want to get all the product inside of the category. For instance, let it be C. Example, C, let it be the category, it's just the object of the category. How I want to get all the products inside of the category. For instance, not product set, it's just the products. Products all. Let it be like this. I want to implement such like a request to get all the product inside of the category. But by default, if you are not providing the related name, it will just add such like a name. For instance, here will be the products, and after setting such like a relation, so the related name products, so the Django will use your products related name to connect from the category side. You will have after setting the product related name, you have to first of all run the migration again, because this name of the relation also will be stored inside of the database. So let's exit, because after migrations, this command, this interpreter will have to be reloaded again. So I want to make migration again and migrate, and after that, open the shell again. From core models, import category and product. And let it be the C1, which is a category 1, category objects first. Oh, sorry. Category, I missed the G1. Okay, C1 is the category 1. C1 dot products. In that case, I can use such like a name which I set it over here. Products all. And as you can see here, we have the list of products. For instance, for P inside of the C1 products all, and print P dot name. Let it be the P dot name. And as you can see here, we have the two products here, product 5 and product 6. And I'm just looping over all products inside of this first category and do some actions. And depending on that, you can also do the different type of options. For instance, let's create a new product. P, let it be the P new. It's just a P, let it be the P product objects create. Let it be the name will be the so the product new. So the price will be the somehow the 2000. Let it be the 2000. Description will be some text, and that's it. So I missed some. Oh, I missed the equal sign here. Name equals to product, and that's it. So using the create function, you know about the different type of so the ORM functions. First of them is all. The all just will return all the objects from the database. Second one is get, which is using the where closure. Here will extract the, depending of the condition, will extract the object. And third one is create, which means insert into, which is converted to the SQL side like insert into table, such like a new item. And P already implemented, so added to the database. If you load it, you can see here, so the product new and our price and so on, but without any category. And this P product can be added to the category items. So here we have, so if you remember, we have product one category. So the product one, category one products all will return all the products inside of this first category. Category one products, and when we have the relation between these two tables, I think we have here also the add function. And let it be here P. So P, which is the first, now in our case, newly created products, and we want to add this product to the product list of the first category. So let's try it. And if you open and see the product which was added right now, as you can see here, the category was automatically set, but we are using the add function from the related object. And as you can see, you have the two options. The first one, when you are creating a new product, you can also explicitly set the category ID. In that case, it will also add it to that list. The second one, if you have already created products without any category, in that case, you can use, for instance, C1 products and add P, and it will work from the both sides. So as you can see here, we have the different options to work with the, so that if you want to select the all, it will return all the products inside of these categories, one, second, and third one. So any questions for now? How can we work with the relations of these two files?
When creating product, can we specify that category equals to C1?
So let's try. So P, let it be the P, which is a new one. Let's go to the side. So the P new, let it be the P new, second one. The price, so let it be the same. The description also same. And when we are setting the category, we have also different options. You can set category ID and some number, for instance, 1. It's the first option. Second option, even we have object here, in our case, C1, it's the object of the category. And if you have the object of some category, you might also have the C1, such like option. And both of them will work perfectly. If you are setting the category equals to some object, it will just extract the ID of that object and will create a new item inside of the product table. And if you want, you can do it like product ID equals to C1.id. This is the same thing as before. Okay? But it's recommended to use, if you want to just store the ID, it's recommended to use the product ID option, because the passing the object as an argument to other functions or other tables and so on, it's not a good option if you won't only get the ID of the product. So that's why you can do, let's try the first one. And we can see that here we have the product ID. Let's do the same thing, but with ID. And -1, which is also the same thing. And let's see again our product list. As you can see, when we are providing like these products, when we while creating a new product, if you are setting the product, so if you are setting the category, it will automatically also add to the product list, which was provided over here. And also you can do it like using the adding these products.add and new product ID. So any other questions?
How can we get objects from our models? For example, not only one, like using get, but two or many.
Okay, we'll will see these examples a little bit later from our slides. I think here will be some examples. For that, you have to use a filter function, which will just return the number of objects, which will give true for your filter. So let's exit from the shell one, and to override this output, inside of the any Python class, to output the Python class object, you might have the magic function, which is str in the Python 3, which is toString function, which you already know. It should return some name. Let it be the some builder string. Let it be the f, the self, id, and so let it be the self and name inside of the product, inside of the category. So let's do the same thing for the product, but in our case self. So the product, and put it as product price also. This str function, you know about this. About this function will use to output of the category. If you are implementing such like a function, and if you try to reload the admin page, you can see more informally data in the product list, because in our case, it will automatically try to understand and try to find such like a function. If you have, it will use it. If you don't have, it will use the default one, which was seen from the previous example. For categories, it's the same thing: the category ID and the name of the category. Okay, I think this is also clear. So if you open the shell one and try to list of the products, you will also have such like outputs for each of the objects, and this str function will use such like examples. Okay, I think about the relation we already know. So we want to implement the API for the category table. So let it be inside of the core. I want to create one more folder. Folder will called products, and these two items will be inside of that folder. And this folder, I want to duplicate it and to rename it like category. The first one should be the category list. Here we have category show, categories, categories. Okay, I want to implement these two APIs. So for that, so we already implemented inside of the core. We already implemented such like a two APIs. So I want to create a new application, start application, which is called API. So API application will be used for our new created APIs. So first, what I have to do is I have to add it to the installed applications. It's the first thing. The second one is inside of the API. I want to create a new file, which is a URL file. I want to copy this one, put it over here, and I want to just so I want to this URL spy file should be implemented inside of the main URL spy file. For that, you have to do so the prefix will be the API, as always, API, and including the API.urls. And I have to duplicated API application. Let's delete this one because we don't need. So API application. So the products also should be here. And prefix will be the API here. API categories and also API categories and some number. Okay, so the prefix is API. And inside of this file, I want to implement the first API, which is the categories. So the categories will be inside of the views. Let's copy from the previous one to so from so the core models import category. I want to import from this model, but API should be inside of the API application. So I want to import that category object. Category list, which is the name of the function. And inside of the URL, I want to use a category list from API views, and we want to category list will be imported, and this function. So the categories objects all, and categories over here. Category over here. Category JSON, and so on over here. From Django HTTP responses, I want to import JSON response. And that's it. The first API is implemented. So we can test it, I think. So I think it's already and okay. So we have here somewhere inside of the settings, we have this understanding. Okay, sorry, this S should be removed. Let's run it again. Okay, it works. If you send a request to the categories, it will return the list of categories inside of this object. I think this is clear, and you know about it already. And want to implement so the category ID. We have here category also. Message category ID also will be removed. So the categories, category ID, and category detail over here. And I think we can use it, and it will return the list, so the object which is selected. If you send them not existing one, it will respond the error. So it will respond the message. So this is already implemented. So how can I add new item to the API? So when we want to add a new item, category create. We know about it that when we want to add new item, we have to send the method, HTTP method, which is post. About it, we already discussed. From the REST API, so the REST API rules says for adding a new item to the database, you have to send a post request. So the REST API, so we discussed about it. So as you can see here, for creating a new object, you have to send a post request, which is insert something. For reading some object from the database, you have to send a get request. And the put for updating, delete for deleting. So from the client side, it will send the request, and depending on the HTTP method, it will do some action in the server side, and it will respond some examples. So about the Postman, we can skip it. Example with the JSON response. Okay. So let's continue over here. So the question is, what should be the URL for adding a new item to the categories? Which URL I have to implement to add a new item to the categories? So any ideas? So the HTTP method should be post. Okay. So if I'm adding like API, so the URL will be this like a create. Is it correct? For instance, all categories.
Categories.
Okay. So about it, we already also discussed. So from the rules of API and for recommendations from the API, it should be like categories and that's it. But we already have such like a URL. So as you can see here, we have the list of categories and the get API is the same. API categories, but HTTP method is get. That's why we are getting the list of categories. But we want to create the same API, but the HTTP method will be the post. And for that, inside of this, so this URL will be required. So this URL will be matched when we are sending such like a request, but HTTP method will be the post. For that, inside of this function, we want to separate these two types of requests, separate by HTTP method name. If it's a get, we want to implement something. If it's a post, we want to implement something. And for debugging such like actions, so let's stop the terminal side from here. And after configuring your PyCharm correctly, you can run your debug option over here, or just clicking to the Control D. In my case, this icon will just run the debug option, so the debugging mode of your Django application, and it will also run your application. If you run it, it will also return the something. But in this case, you can put like a checkpoints over here. For instance, I know that if I'm sending a request to this URL, it will call this function. This function will be called, and I want to put checkpoint over here. By clicking to this part of the PyCharm editor, you can put a checkpoint, which means your program should stop in that case, in this point, for seeing some actions, for seeing some variable contents and so on. But it cannot be work when you are running like managed by run server. Run server will be run from the terminal, but you have to run from the debug side. Okay, let's try to send some request over here. And you will have, so CSRF verification failed, which means by default your APIs, when you are sending a request, method names, HTTP method names like a post or put or delete, you have to verify CSRF token. So that's why in our case, we don't need any CSRF token because it's just a front-end side verification from the forms, which is from the HTTP forms. For that, from Django, so I think inside of the views, decorators, we have CSRF example. Such like a decorator we have inside of the Django, which will just keep the verification of the CSRF token, because we don't need, for now, we don't need such like a verification. And this decorator will be just added before our function, and it will just keep such like a checking process. And let's try to send it again. So after reloading the server, send it again. And as you can see here, program goes inside of this function and stops over here. And in the bottom side, you have the different type of values. So all the function variables, current function variables. As you can see, we have the request object over here. And inside of the request, you might have the different data. And you can check what data will store. And if you have such like a different number of checkpoints, using this icon, you can just one by one, by manually implement each line and see the changes and see the what's going on inside of this your code. And this option, this icon will just open the window. In that window, you can see the variables contents and do some actions. For instance, request. And inside of the request, we have the different objects. For instance, you have here, so the path and so on, all needed data. For instance, inside of the meta object, you have all and extended for adding the headers and so on. All the data which was passed from the request will be stored inside of this object. And this object, which is a WSGI request object, which is HTTP request object from the Django side. And one of the attributes of that object, it's just a method. As you can see, it says post method. Let's reload our term, so the debugging point, and I'm sending the get request to the same function. And it will also stop in this case. Let's see the request method, and it says get. So we know about these two different types of the methods. And after that, we want to do such like an option. If request method equals to get, which is a string, we want to implement this one. Else if request method equals to post, in that case, we want to do something, but not implement it yet. So after that, it will just reload the server again, and you can send a request, and you will have such like a result. So let's add a simple response over here, like message, new item created. After reloading, so if you send a request, you will have the list of products to the same URL. And for the same URL, if you're sending a post request, you will have such like a message, which is we implemented over here. But in this case, you have to do add new category over here. Okay, I think this is clear. So about the checkpoints, you have to also work and try to implement it by yourself. So if you send over here request, and one by one you can implement each line. For instance, after implementing it, it will go to the next checkpoint, and after that you can check the categories object over here, which is over here, the list of categories and so on. And if you put over here one more checkpoint, you can do it. You can do, and for as we have here the for loop, you have to one by one implement for each object, and after that categories JSON was created, and categories JSON also will have the such like content, and you can see the results of that objects. Okay, so how can I add new item? So when I'm trying to add new item, I have to send the data from the in our case from the Angular side. It might be from the mobile side. So to add the item, you have to send the data. For sending the data from the Postman, you have body tab over here. Inside of the body tab, we have different type of options to sending a data, the forms of the options to sending a data. So one of them is form data, so the URL and code and so on. The raw binary objects. So the binary means you can upload some file and send the data inside of the form. You can also select instead of the text, you have to select option. For instance, if you have the image one, you can select some image. So I have image over here. So let's save it. Save this image. So for some APIs, it's required to upload the file or to upload the image. In that case, the name of the key will be the image, and as a value, you can send a request, send a file as API. So if you have the form data, so if it is required to have the file uploading, you have to always implement it inside of the form data. But in our case, for adding a new category, it's only required to add the name of the category. So let's see the category side. So the name of the category is enough to add a new item to the category. So for that, we'll have to select here row, and to see the sending data more informally, you can select over here the JSON format. And after that, you can set here the new item data for sending it to the backside. Let it be the name. So the category in our case is a third category. So what I'm doing, so I'm selecting the post request here. So API is the same. So inside of the body, I selected the row option. To see the more informal, for instance, you can select the text one also. It will do the same thing. But for seeing and checking the JSON object data, so I'm selecting the JSON part, and it will just show the more pretty the sending data. So I'm sending only the name. For instance, let's imagine from the Angular side, we have only one input for adding a new category. So inside of the one input will be entered the name of the category, and after that will be click it to the submit button. In that case, this API will be called. And from this input, you will have the content of the new category, and you will send a such like item. If you remember from the Angular last lab works, you send it such like APIs to the fake API from the online. Okay, let's put. So okay, URL will be here. So the time is okay. Enough time. So I'm sending the post request, which means we are inside of this file, inside of this part, because inside of the post part. And I want to identify how can I get how can I get the data that was added from the request. So I'm sending this request, and I'm over here, and I want to see inside of the request somehow I have to get the data of data that was added. So one of the options is body. As you can see here, the body was sent as a string, which means the object that was over here, which is a name. As you can see, this the request is just waiting because I'm just debugging it. So this data was converted to this string, which is serialized as a string, and pass it over here like a body. So to work with the items inside of this data, I have to deserialize it deserialize it to the object. For that, so let's load it. For that, I want to import here, import JSON object. If you have the string-based JSON object, to get it back as an object, you have to use, let it be, so let's run it again and see inside of the debugging part. So the request body, which is the data, from the JSON, you have load as function. Load as function will take as an argument some string and will try to convert it to the object. So I am passing here request body. And after that, as you can see, we have the dictionary output. Dictionary which will have the key, which is a name, and the value is a value that was added over here. And that's it. This type of conversion will be due for getting an object, for getting a data, from the request that was passed. So here should be some validations and so on about it. We'll just skip it for now. It will be in the next lectures. So that's why we are guaranteeing that in our case, we are passing the name that was passed over here. So the data is over here. And what we want to do is we want to create a new category. Category objects create. So the name equals to data name. I think this is clear for you. So the data is from the request body, which is this object. Using these JSON loads, we convert it to the dictionary. And from the dictionary, I want to get a name and pass it to the for creating of the object. And for creation, if it is so the name might be somehow the not in needed format. For that, I want to use a try except function, try except block. So let's open over here. So returning JSON. So it will try to create a new object using the name that was passed over here. And if it's okay, so let's close this one. And if it is okay, and if it creates successfully that category, in that case, I want to just return the category JSON object, which means just newly created object will be returned as a response to that API. So let's run it. And as you can see, we have the category ID from the admin side. You can also see the category which was created right now. So the same thing you can do for the other items. And for instance, if you are sending it without any data, you will have the message like a name was, this name was required. So you can send your own messages over here, which is the name object will be required and so on. And like this, you can create your categories from the API, like in that options. So this is a third API, which is the first one, it's a list. Second one, as you can see, a list over here. Second one is for getting one item. The third one is for creating. So let's implement the next one, which is update. And about the update, we also know. So for updating, you have to send a request using the put option, HTTP method. For updating a new item, so from the REST, you know that for updating, what API should be for updating? Can you remember? So this URL, which URL will be used for updating some item?
Categories and ID.
Okay, categories and ID. So about like this API we already have. So the category show will do the same thing. Over here we have the ID of the category. But for updating some item, we are sending a put request instead of the get. But the API, so the URL is the same. So for that, we have the same thing here. So the URL will be the same, but inside of the category detail, we have to separate them by a request method. If it's a method equals to get, in that case, I want to implement such like an option. Else if request method equals to put, put, in that case, I want to do some other action. Like this, you can also implement the same URL, but different options. So let's try it. So we have category one also. So category one, I want to update the name will be category one updated. So the name should be the category one updated, and I'm selecting this item. And request method will be the put. So the request method will be the put, and I know that new item. So the data will be passed to this API. It means like this, you have to convert it to the data object, and I have to update this selected category, which means I have to, using this category ID, I have to do the same thing which I did before, like over here. But I know that inside of this first one, in the second one, I'm doing the same thing. That's why let's get this from the if-else condition. So always I want to extract selected item from the database. So the category ID, and I'm trying to get from the database such like a category. If it's not exist, it will just immediately return the message. And if it's okay, I will check. After that, I will check if it's a request method equals to get. I'm just returning it back. If it's a put, I have to somehow update it. So the category name should be data name and category safe. For updating some item, you have to set the attribute of the category, and after that you have to save this updated one, so updated object. So it just highlighting because so statement what says statement seems to have no effect. Why no effect? Because so else if what's going on? So let's create like so let's check it. So the JSON response after updating some item, I want to return the updated object. So the method is put, ID selected, and the name was selected also. So let's put here checkpoint to see the working process for each line. And I'm sending the request. Oh, it says CSRF token because I'm sending also the data. That's why this decorator will be also used for the next function. So it should reload it, and let's try it again. And okay. And okay. Request method, which is a put, data, which is a data, category 1. So category 1 name, so category 1, data name, which is updated. Oh, I'm just putting this problem here. Here I put a two times equal sign, which is a comparison. I have to assign it, isn't it? I have to assign the new value to the name, and after that I have to save it. Save means it will just update a new item. So let's try it, and it will just return the updated object. If you see over here, it will update it again. Updated something like this, and in the admin side you can see the changes over here. Okay, I think this is clear. So our object was selected over here. If I'm sending the not existing ID, it will just return in this line. Even without any comparison, it will just return in this line, the JSON response and the message. If it is okay, if I'm getting the category from the database, and after that I will start for comparing to the HTTP method name, which is get. If it's a get, so if it's a get, it will just return the object. If it's a put, it will try to update. So it will try to update the object. And as you can see, if I am sending many times to the same data and to the same URL, it should be the same output. It's somehow called asymptotic methods. Asymptotic methods should be asymptotic requests should return the same result if I am sending the same request to the same URL. Get request also will be the asymptotic because it's also the same. But creating a new object, which is not asymptotic, because when I'm sending it again and again, so this request, if I'm sending again and again, it will create a new item, which is the ID will be to change it every time. But in this case, it will not change, and show which is also not changed. So that's why the get and put methods in some cases, so in some books, they can be like asymptotic methods. Okay, so we missed one more API, and you can guess it. It's just a deleting object. For deleting the category, so you have to select the delete object. For deleting, if you remember, we don't need to add any data. So which means without any data, I have to send a request to the categories and for selecting some item, which means in the list of categories, someone clicks to the trash button, trash icon for some category. In that case, the front side will be sent such like a request to the back side with the selected item. Selected, which means over here the number, so the ID of the category. So as you can see, the URL will be the same. So URL will be the same. That's why I'm working inside of the same function. Same function, but one more if request. So here we have the delete method. If I'm deleting some item, so I already take from the category, from the table that selected category. It's just enough to do like delete, and that's it, and returning some response from the backside. So the message, so deleted. So it might be anything. It depends on you. You can just return the empty object, for instance. For by default, the deleting of the objects will return the status code like a 204, which is a no content. Without any contents, it means it was successfully deleted, and the status will be then 204. And let it be the message over here in our case, because it's just an example. So I want to delete the first item, so let it be the second one. I'm sending, and it says, so the message, something like this, and the status code says no content, because I cannot return the deleted object, which is already deleted, and that's why it should be the no content. And from the admin side, you can see that the second one was deleted. You can try to the third one also deleted. If you are passing such like an invalid ID, you will have the same result from this line. Okay, I think this is clear. And as you can see, we implemented the CRUD APIs, which is the creating, updating, and deleting, reading actions for category model. And depending for each data, for each models, and for each APIs, you can implement any of them using these examples. So any questions for now, guys?
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the save function at the code? Could you explain it, please, again?
Save function. You mean about this save, isn't it?
Yes, 37th slide.
So, okay. Inside of the any model, in our case, it's a category. Inside of this function, we have only function called save. This type of function. This save function will be used for updating a new objects. For instance, I'm getting the new object, I'm getting the category object from the database, which is over here, and I am updating the attributes of this object. So the name equals to the new name from the request side, and after that, I have to implement this updating to the database. It's just somehow like a migration inside of the code. So I'm updating it. So the name, set it as a new name, and this setting, if you are missing the save part, it will just work inside of this part of the code. But in the database, it will be just the previous value that was in the previous while creation. To applying these changes in the database, you have to call the save function. So we don't have the function called like update inside of the Django classes. So Django models, we don't have such like an update function for one object. For one object, you can also do you can only do the save function to the update the selecting objects. But for a number of objects, for instance, category objects, for number of objects, you can also use the update function. We'll discuss about it a little bit later. But for now, if you have only one object of the some model, some class, in that case, to updating a new item, you have to call the function save.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay, if you don't have any questions, so I want to see our slides. So what's going on over here? So it says the question from some student was from Yernur, I think. So for getting items from the database, which are not only one, but several one. For instance, let's implement inside of the getting list of categories. For getting a list of categories over here. So I'm seeing that we have such like an output, and I'm putting over here checkpoint, run it again, and category objects, for instance, get ID equals to 1, which will return only one object of the category. If you are using a filter function, which is also ORM function, which can be used like all, like get and so on for create, they are also all of them are created for you to implement such like examples. For instance, filter name. So the example over here, what is the name equals to something? So the name equals to, in our case, let it be the product. So the product 2. Do I have such like a option? So we don't have. Which object we have? Product 4 we have. So product 4, which means, product 4 also we don't have. Oh, it's a category. So sorry. Category 4, and it will return the category for exact. So the exact name of the name of the category should be equals to the something like this. But you can do more options as you can see here, more options for extracting the data. For instance, starts with means, for instance, cat, it will return all the, or ends with, starts with cat. It will return all the categories because name of all categories will start from the cat or from CA. It doesn't matter. So such like examples will be over here. So in this case, we are just getting a product which are the name exact equals to the some name. For instance, let's do it like this. So let's create some product here. Category 5 several times. So in our database, we have the category 5 several times, and I'm using here filter name equals to category 5. Category 5. And it should reload it. And after sending a request for getting a list of items, you will have all objects which contains a name equals to category 5 exactly. So just equal sign will be the exactly. So let's do this second option. Okay. For name, we have the using the 2 underscores, which is also called magic lookups. Magic lookups for getting a data. For instance, starts with something. Starts with category. In that case, you will have all objects from the database because all objects will contain the name equals to starts with the something. For instance, ends with ID. Name ends with the char ID. In that case, you will have only one object, which is this one. This is a different type of lookups in the slides. I think we have. So we have here such like a filtering data for contain something. So for instance, first one is contain. So let's use name contains some item. So contains, let it be what else for differentiating it. contains 5. Let it be the contains 5. In that case, if you are sending a request, you will have such like a category names which contain the char 5. In our case, char 5. For instance, containing the update. If you send it, you will have only first example. So such like a filtering objects you can use using the 2 times underscore. The name of the field. So the field name, in our case, it's so the name and 2 times underscore and the name of the filter. So one of them, so very useful also, ID, for instance, 2 times underscore and inside of the, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this request also can be converted by logically. You can understand this request also. I mean SQL request. In the SQL we have such like a request like a ID in some list of tuples. So list of integers inside of the tuple. And inside of the Django you can do it like this: ID in this list. And it will just return all the products which will contain, so the IDs inside of this URL. So inside of this, not URL, it's a list of items. So from the slides we have starts with, ends with, exact. It's exact, it's just the same thing like just setting it is equal sign. They are the same. So is null, greater than, less than. So depending on the price, for instance, in the product side, you can get a list of products which is greater than some number or less than some number. It's a GT, it's a greater than, GTE, it's a greater than or equal. And depending on that, you can do it such like a filterings. So retrieving single objects, which is get function. So get filter function. So the filter function will return the one object or more object. If it exists. If it's not exist, it will just return the none. But not none. It's just an empty list. For getting one object, you can use the ID. You can use the ID. So the get function for getting one object. And for ordering, so let's see ordering something. For ordering something, so let's use all over here. List of items over here. And after that, you can use, for instance, ordering with some column. Let that be the ID. From the slides, you can see that it will just ordering by the name, and it will convert it like this, order by the name. So from the ID, for getting opposite side, you can use just a minus sign before the item, so the column name. It means it will just reverse it, and it will just by increasing and decreasing order. It's ask and desk from the SQL side. If it's without any minus sign, it will just order it by asking order. It's just increasing order. If it's a minus sign, it will just a decreasing order. Same thing for the name. Let it be the name minus name. In that case, the category 5 will be the first, and the 4 and 1, and depending on that. Okay, it's just ordering some items. You can chain different orders. For instance, first option using the ID, which is the increasing, which is the ask order. And in the same case, the name will be the decreasing order. It's also work. And number of columns, it doesn't matter how many. If it is, if you in your category table, if you have the 10 columns, you can implement the 10 orders at the same time. So the second order will be implemented only if we have the same IDs for the categories. But we don't have such like items, that's why just remove it. Okay, so ordering, I think it's also clear. So like this, you can use the name order first, and if the names are the same, in that case, you can use the addresses order. So the minus sign, which is a decreasing order. So about the class, meta class, we already discussed. So the meta class will describe the minimum, so the minimum configurations or minimum metadata of that class. So inside of the meta class, you can also do this the default ordering. So for instance, inside of the model, like the meta class, you can do it like ordering equals to, so the minus name, which means for all of these category items. So after that, you have to run the make migrations. So for getting items, for instance, without any ordering over here, if you are setting inside of the meta that ordering should be the minus name, always when you are getting a list of names, you will have already implemented ordering, so which is a by default ordering. So if you are putting like so the just name, which means ordering will be the by increasing order the name. Even we have inside of the view just all function. So this is not recommended if you don't need this ordering, because it will just give the extra data for each request to the database, because for all actions inside of the category table, it will try to add the ordering for the name. That's why pay your attention if you have such like a functionality that like for each request to the category table from the Django side to the database, is it necessary to ordering by the name? If it's so, you can add it inside of the metadata, so the meta class, to implement such like a ordering. If it's not, it's recommended to use it like a manually inside of the views inside of the other cases. Okay, I think the chaining lookups. So we already discussed about it. So the filtering something, and after filtering, what result we got from that request, from that function, can be used for ordering something or for other lookups that we have from the price, from the requests. For instance, so let it be the filtering like the name contains the 5, for instance, this type of items, and these items, let it be the ordered from the ID minus sign, which is ID should be the decreased. So 8, 7, sorry, 6, and 5. Like this, you can do the different chaining orders, chaining objects. For instance, after filtering, we have implemented, we have applied the ordering items over here. Okay, the time is okay. We can continue. For deleting objects, we already discussed. So the product object get ID and delete one selected item, like in our API. So we are category objects get for getting a one object, and after getting a one object, we are just deleting one object. But if you can delete all products from the table using like product objects all, and after that delete, and it will delete all the products from the table if it's necessary. Again, it depends on you, and if it's necessary, you can do without any filterings. You can delete some items. For instance, you can do it like categories, filtering some filterings, and after that delete, and it will delete all the items that was returned from this first chain. Like this, you can do it without any filtering, like all, and it will delete all the items from the table, which is very critical, and they have to understand what's going on inside it. So CRUD API will be implemented, and that's it for today. I think the time is okay. So question for now, guys. Any questions, guys? So inside of the admin side, you might have different. So I discussed about the admin side, and I promised to show the admin side configurations. So let's do it. For instance, quickly show this part because we have to implement it. So we are just showing the item, so the product inside of this table, like one object. But you can do it like implement after creating a class product, which will extend from the admin model admin. Sorry, model admin. And inside of the model admin, you might have the different type of configurations of the model for selected product. And before this class, you have to add a decorator which called admin register, and inside it you have to put like a product. So this type of configuration will give more ability to manage your configuration on the admin side. And this part will just add this category to admin side, that's it, without any configurations. And for category, so I registered like this as a decorator. I created a own class, which is a product admin, which extends from this class. You can see what's going on inside of this class by yourself and try to understand what's inside it. And one of these options is list. So the list display. List display option will have the list of columns of that model. So inside of the product, we have the column ID, let it be the column name, column price, and column what else? So column description and column category. And after configuring such like changes and the admin py file, if you reload the product table, you will have such like changes in the admin side, which is a more comfortable to see and more informally separately pretty new for updating and setting the categories. For instance, here we have the category and so on, and all the things that we have. So you can also add, let it be the, for instance, searching field, for instance, for name. For name column, I want to add a searching field, and it will be added over here. For instance, new to, and it will search for the new to inside of the admin side. And for instance, if you have, you can use a filter. So list filtering, that will be for category. And in that case, you will have such like option for selecting a category, for instance, category 5, category 1, and it will just add such like filters, all without any filters. And inside of the search field, you can also add one more fields, number of fields depending on the needed, depending on the requires. For instance, price, and in that case, it will just add searching for 2 columns from name and from price. Let it be the 2000, and you will have the products like this. Such like and implemented from the admin model for category, and the same, and we'll have even more options, and for all options you can see inside it and like this. So that's it for today, guys. Any questions for now? So let's import. So let's so I want to export this one. Export this one to the examples week number 11 and save it. Okay, it's saved. So git add. So this collection was also added to the GitHub. You can also download and import it to see such like URLs that we already implemented. Okay, any questions for now, guys? The time is up. We have to finish. Any questions?
No questions.
So I think this is clear, and you have to do manually at your home. Try to add the relations between the tables and working with the related names, and how we did from the terminal side, like from the managed by shell, and more practicing for understanding what logic will have inside it, and trying to running the debug modes and putting the checkpoints inside of the views and so on. And and trying to use a filter, some chaining lookups and so on, like filtering lookups, different type of filtering lookups, and implementing the CRUD operation for the other objects that we have from this category list. And about the lab work and about the projects, you have to discuss with the assistants and pass them with the on time with the deadlines. Okay, if you don't have any questions, I have to stop the recording.